I'm very career driven and I always have been, but I also knew I wanted to be a mum and have a family. So I couldn't do everything all at once. And I think it was knowing that there would come a point in my career where I have to pause it to have my family. Culture to me is not just a piece of paper or a writing on the wall. Culture is every day showing up and living those values. And if you could be intellectually the smartest person in the room, but if you have no emotional intelligence, you cannot lead a successful team.
Kathryn is a leader I deeply admire. Bold, authentic, and generous in sharing lessons and systems that have shaped her success. Her insights are sure to empower you on your own leadership journey.
Sebastian Vettel is a former F1 world champion. And I think he inspires me because at the peak of his career, he was actively looking for ways to give back and do good. So it wasn't uncommon for him to be cleaning up rubbish in the grandstands after, just racing and potentially, winning or being on a podium. Sustainability has always been a passion of mine, and I'm so lucky in my position as GM to be able to drive change and to influence the behaviours of my team. So if I can challenge them to do something at work that may be a little bit out of their comfort zone in relation to sustainability and environmental behaviours, and then they can then take that home and perhaps influence their family, their children, their friends, it's so important to find the time for your team, because if you don't, they'll go somewhere else that has the time for them. My husband and I, on Friday, we have Champagne Friday. So it's not always a bottle of champagne that we open. Some days it's a $10 bottle. It doesn't matter what happened in the week, there'd be small wins that we're celebrating with Champagne Friday. And that's our moment to just kind of sit down and go, right, what are we toasting to this week?
Kathryn, thank you so much for making time to have a conversation. For a decade, I have watched you do what you do elegantly. I have watched you being a leader in hospitality and hotels, but I've also watched you being an amazing mentor to people I consider close friends. And I think that's a rare quality because you've got so much to do. There's so many expectations, but you also show up for your team. How do you do that?
Thank you. What an introduction. I think the 10 years that I've known you has been quite a career evolution for me. So if I look back at 10 years ago, I just finished doing G20 and had come back to Doma after being in Brisbane, and was given the opportunity to be the pre-opening manager for Brassey Hotel. And with that came, I guess, all the nuances of a historic property and what that looks like in terms of managing something like that, but also the opportunity to manage Little National Hotel as a pre-opening manager. And once I was able to successfully deliver those two to the opening, stay on as their hotel manager. And then if we fast forward now, in between all of that, I was general manager of Burberry Hotel and now have Hotel Realm. So collectively now the area GM for the precinct. So yeah, it's been quite a transformation. And in amongst all of that, I've had 2 kids. So it's been a busy time.
A very busy time. But you also bring experience working internationally. How has that helped you in the expectations that a hotel guest would have at a property, a owner would have from their property, and a brand would want to have?
Yeah, my time overseas was an amazing training opportunity. So first of all, I worked in Japan at a hotel and had a 6-month contract there. And that, having studied Japanese throughout my schooling, that was an amazing opportunity to really sink myself into not only the culture, but also the language component. And really, I remember coming home from shifts feeling so mentally drained because I had to translate everything, translate the English in my head to Japanese to converse with the guest. So I'd just go home and be like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. But the cultural opportunities there were just incredible to work with native Japanese speakers and what we call gaijins, so foreigners. That was just an amazing opportunity. And then when I went to Canada, I had 2 different hotels there that I was working at. One was a rustic resort in the middle of the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And then I moved to beautiful Fairmont Banff Springs, which is known for its iconic luxury delivery. And that just elevated what I thought luxury to be, and what I was able to deliver it at the Banff Springs was incredible. And I've taken, I guess, elements of those two properties into what I do today.
Who inspires you professionally? Not just the person or the people, but what about their behaviors and actions inspire you?
This is going to be totally left field, but Sebastian Vettel is a former F1 world champion. And I think he inspires me because at the peak of his career, he was actively looking for ways to give back and do good. So it wasn't uncommon for him to be cleaning up rubbish in the grandstands after, just racing and potentially, winning or being on a podium. He's done so much advocacy work for females and for the environment, and kind of acknowledging the impact that sport that he loves and he's made his career in, what that's doing to the environment. And I just think if someone has got such an amazing platform and they're using it to do good, that is so inspirational. And then if we look at kind of in my career, I've had some really incredible and inspiring leaders that have taught me what I want to do. But on the flip side, I've had exposure to leaders that I don't appreciate their leadership style, but it's an opportunity to go, that's what I don't want to do. So I think every manager, leader, director that you're working with across your career, you can pick elements up from and, kind of mold your own style. Yeah.
When you look at someone who inspires you, given your years working, given your wisdom now as a mother of 2 children, what does that teach you about you?
I think I'm very career driven, and I always have been. But I also knew I wanted to be a mum and have a family. So I couldn't do everything all at once. And I think it was knowing that there would come a point in my career where I'd have to pause it to have my family. And so if I look back at each of the, my 2 children being born, there were some pivotal moments where I'm like, if I wasn't pregnant right now, I'd be taking the next leap in my career. So it's challenging because I wanted everything, but it was a really hard lesson to learn that I can't have it all at once and I just need to wait. And someone actually told me, he goes, it's not that you're not going to get it, it's just that it's on pause for a moment. So I thought that was really lovely to hear. It's like, it's still going to happen. I just need to take time to do what's personally really important for me right now, and that was to have my family.
For those driven, professional, beautiful women that have children, and then whether you're coming back into a corporate career, whether you're in the public service going back, whether you're running your own business, how easy is it to access that information that you just shared that says, I'm not stopping it, I'm not forgetting it, I'm not giving up on it, I'm just pausing it? Because I don't think that's an easy bit of information to access out there.
You're right, it's not. And it's interesting because it wasn't long after I'd come back from having my daughter that I'd be asked, when are you having another one? Or, we didn't think you'd come back. So I think it's going to be different for every woman and every family, different dynamics. And, I think it's a difficult piece of advice to access. But if I can share that with others and your listeners, I feel like I've done my part. But yeah, each industry is different, and it may be that your pause is longer than mine was, or that it's shorter. It's individually, I guess it'll be different for everybody. But yeah, it's not easy.
If you reflect a couple of moments on you returning back to work, what are a couple of things that you learned that you're comfortable sharing?
It really does take a village to raise a child. And I am so lucky and so grateful that I have my husband, who is so incredibly supportive of what I do. And he's only ever known me as a hotelier. So not that it's no shock to him that I'm career driven and I want to be back in the workforce, but he's there at home, managing his own career, but also just so hands-on, and understands that my days can be so different. And if I'm held back at work, that's okay, because he'll go pick up the kids one day. Or, I've got an amazing, the kids have amazing grandparents. My parents and my in-laws are so heavily involved in, again, helping with pick up and drop off and, sports and things like that. And I don't take that for granted for a second, because I know there are so many families that don't have that. And it would be incredibly challenging, to the point where I'm very comfortable saying, if I didn't have that village around me, I wouldn't be doing what I am today, because it just would be not impossible, but very, very difficult.
And from a career perspective, from a work perspective also, when you came back to work, or when you came back to work part-time and then moving in full-time, what are some of those lessons? Because you, I'm certain, would have run at a particular pace, would have done things at a particular quality, and that's not something you want to compromise. But sometimes you don't really have that choice or that option, because your day began at 3 a.m.
Yes, and there have been those days where I feel like I arrive at work and I've already run a marathon. And that could just be because, you go into a negotiation with a 4-year-old who doesn't want to put his shoes on, or who's carrying a cup of milk and spills it on the carpet as you're leaving. And I think I've learned that, some things you just have to let go. You have to understand that the house will just be a little bit messier today because I don't have time to put the laundry on. Or, I'm going to have to trust my team at work to deliver that event because I have to go. And I think there's a great analogy about glass balls and plastic balls, and you may have heard it before, but every day these balls change, and the balls are just your priorities. So some days my kids are my glass balls, and if I drop them, they break, and that's a problem. But some days they're plastic. If I've got someone else picking them up, I can drop that ball and know that it'll bounce back, and that's okay. And every day it's just a matter of organizing those priorities and going, yep, I can do that. No, I can't do that. That has to wait. And just managing all of that amongst everything else.
And as elegantly and as beautifully and as calmly as you do, how does that come to be, Kathryn? Is that with time? Is that with experience, that you bring in that calm, settled persona almost to work? Because there's a team of driven, capable, mostly young people working with you. And sometimes how you sound, how you look, your strides can impact them.
Yes. And I think if I'm calm around them, that will emulate their behavior. If I come in flustered and frazzled, and there's certainly been some challenges in my career where we've had, emergency situations or things that haven't gone to plan, where you just need to look at what we can do to solve the issue. And that does come with experience. But knowing that if I look at leaders that I've looked up to, if I think, okay, well, how would they respond in this situation? And did I follow a leader that was calm and kind of settling the situation? Or am I following someone that was frantic and swearing and really didn't have control of the situation? And I kind of take stock, take a breath and go, okay, whatever I do now, my team are going to copy that and sense that. So I'd be very careful with, how I respond. And then maybe it's something I do in front of them, and then I run to a bathroom and have a different reaction. But yeah, it's that calm approach which comes with experience and just, having exposure to different things that happen, throw you a curveball.
That's also that insight and intelligence that knows what's on stage, but also when you need to have a moment, what's a safe space for you to have that moment? Because we're all human. As much as we have to do lots of things, as much as we need to show up for a lot of things, we are human. If we go back to a time where you were doing lots of things at the same time, if we reflect back on something like G20, where you're not doing one activity only, there's a sequence and a range of activities. If you reflect back and if you can share, what were some of those key challenges when you structured your day? But reflecting back now, what have they taught you about your abilities and capabilities?
That's a great question. If I think back about how I structured my day, before the actual summit, we were engaging with embassies all over the world. So they weren't necessarily based in our time zone. So structuring the day became almost like a 24-hour day, because you'd kind of leave the office at a certain time, but the closer it got to the event, you could be called or emailed, at any time and need a response. So the days almost became a little bit, I guess, the days became longer, but the idea of structuring it like a typical 9 to 5 just wasn't an option. But I was comfortable with that because hotels aren't 9 to 5 either. When we came to the delivery of the actual event, that was logistically just so much going on. And the structure of that day came like you broke it down into minutes, because if you've got motorcades moving around the city and you've also got media on you, so the world's eyes are watching the delivery of this event, you want to make sure you know what you're doing. And that was really about relationship management with our security team, our logistics team, and, all of these amazing people that were experts in their own field that you just draw on their expertise and be like, right, this is what we need to do. We need to get A to B. This is how we're going to do it. It was amazing. And I think I left my hotel career as a front office manager, did G20 and came back and was offered a pre-opening manager for a hotel. So 18 months almost like out of the hotel industry, but the career trajectory that gave me was something that I just think was incredible to kind of come back and go from FOM to pre-opening hotel manager. Yeah.
It's also an acknowledgement of the amount of skills you have to display under a level of stress for delivering an event like that.
Mm-hmm.
For a young person looking at whether it's the Olympics coming up or big events like that, why should they take up a challenging career when their friends are building comfortable careers close to home sometimes? Why should a young person consider one of those big events as a career option?
Because it's that adrenaline. It's that community that you build with the staff around you. So some of the people I worked with are still some of my best friends today, because we were all in it together. And it's like we bonded over this amazing event that we delivered, despite the stress and the pressure and the anxiety and everything else that came with it. But yeah, I think the opportunity to deliver on an event, to say that you've actually seen it from start to finish, is quite remarkable. And it's something that no one can take away from you then. It's like to think that there are plenty of people out there that will deliver the Olympics or deliver the Australian Open, for example. Yeah, it's these big events that bring so much attention to Australia and show that what Australians can do. So it's cool to be a part of something like that.
And what was your biggest learning curve when you went in to deliver the event from being an FOM for a property?
Yeah.
What was that steepest learning curve?
It was relying on the trust I had in the other people around me. The trust I had on our security team, working with, the Queensland Police. You had to trust these people, and you had a very short time really to get to know them. So, when we're in the hotel delivering, it was just, we're all here to make this a success. And I think it was just relying on others, because no one person could have done that event themselves, right? So you have to look to your team and trust that they're doing their part to make it a success.
And I love the fact that in our conversations, and you reference it also, some of those people who delivered that event with you are still close with you. It doesn't matter that you don't have the opportunity to speak with them every day or every week, that those friendships are built on a really strong foundation where you've built something together.
Yes.
And if we pivot to something else that I've watched you build passionately, tell me about Little National.
Yeah. Little National is a unique little hotel offering, and it's the idea of a little room giving you everything you need but nothing you don't, and creating these beautiful common areas of lounges and libraries for guests to work and relax in, but not giving you the extra space in a room that's not needed. 17 metres square at our standard Little National rooms, and it's been an amazing journey to be part of that hotel and that brand from like the conception stage. Yeah.
You always spoke about it so eloquently. How did you make the team around you believe in the concept? Because it was new to Canberra, not new globally. There was offerings like that and offerings that have done things really well and some that haven't done things so well. You advocated for it so well that how did you make your team believe in it? And then when you needed to go and do sales pitches, how did you convince the customers that was the right offering for them?
Yeah, it's because of the way, I guess when you walk into a Little National room, you immediately see the bed, which is between two walls up against a floor-to-ceiling, wall-to-wall window. So it's quite beautiful when you walk in and you've got that as your, I guess, your opening shot. But the challenges with that are that there's no scope for rollaway beds, for baby cots. There's no interconnecting rooms in Canberra. So we had to stand behind what had been built. And that led us to have some guests that absolutely love the product and rave about it. But it also meant that there'd be people that weren't so fond of it. And that's okay. The flexibility of what we've got in the precinct here is that if it's not your style of accommodation, we can find your style because we've got other properties that deliver apartment style, heritage stays, penthouses. So yeah, it's I think standing behind and believing in this amazing, unique little offering is what led to its success. We didn't compromise on quality. We didn't compromise on the offering. And that kind of led to Sydney, Newcastle and Adelaide being built opening next year.
Tell me about that team you had at, whether it's pre-opening or during opening, because some of them are some of my closest friends and some of them have, not been working in the hotel for about, let's say, 4 or 5 years, but speak about it so glowingly every time. Tell me about that team, because you built that team. You shaped that team, is what they tell me. You shaped some of their careers. How did you go about doing that?
That is so lovely to hear. They were green. That team was green. So I don't think the opening team had any hotel experience, and I'd hired them based on personality because this hotel was all about that arrival experience, being able to connect with your guest immediately. And so, yeah, I didn't hire them based on a hotel resume. I just looked at someone and we met and it was like, okay, you can engage with me now. You're going to be amazing on the front desk. And to think that I've had that impact on some of those staff, that is truly wonderful to hear because I love, part of my job is coaching and mentoring my team. And so to think that I've been able to turn a non-hotelier into someone that's passionate about the industry or had their time in the industry and has moved on to something else. I have such fond memories of those opening days when we're all on the desk or we're all, learning how to make the beds or, just kind of getting familiar with the product. Some amazing memories from back then.
It's a beautiful product. And I reflect back when you said make the beds, because people actually come back and buy the beds.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So our beds, they're branded Arms of Morpheus, named after the god of sleep. And they are amazingly plush. We found that people were interested enough and wanted them. And we're not the first hotel company to sell beds. There are other hotels that sell their mattresses because they are comfortable. We have people that love them so much that we have now got a little national shop where you can buy other things that you find in the room, whether it's bathrobes, the scent. You can buy that in a candle. Our beds were one of the hits.
And from that, you're taking a Canberra-born brand, a Canberra-born success story nationally, internationally. What has that journey been like?
Having worked before Doma, I worked for global brands and came to Doma initially in 2012 as front office manager. And coming out of a global company to an independent company, it had its challenges because I was so used to things taking time, for one, because you'd have to get approval for anything and you had owners that were, offshore, or there were so many hoops to jump through. Coming to Doma, where I had the ability to actually drive change almost immediately, that was something that I just relished in. It was like, I can see a better way of doing this. Let's streamline it. And it really, like, not having to worry about so many processes and roadblocks. The fact that our owners are still in the precinct daily and are so willing to invest in the hotels. It's refreshing, it's wonderful, and it makes you want to deliver the best experience for the guests because you've got the best product.
And I will apologize to all of the hotel GMs that have sit and write briefs to the brand and then get it approved through the owners and the owners holding company, because that can also be a challenging process. But having the owners sit in something that's a passion project for them also requires you to understand some of their thinking, some of their likes and dislikes. How has that process been for you who's a passionate hotelier who's got to now understand somebody who's an investor, somebody who's a builder, somebody who cares about building something of their own. How has that process of learning these people been like for you?
I think having owners that are so willing to invest in the property has made such a difference, because in previous roles, you're fighting for money to spend on a branded pen, for example. Here, I think it's that mutual respect that we're going to give you an amazing product. We'll continue to invest in the product for you to deliver these exceptional experiences for the guests. And because our owners and our executive office is in the precinct, there's lots of eyes around, which as a GM I like, because I can't be across 4 hotels at the same time all the time. So if someone's giving me feedback, it's like fantastic, like I can action that, and it just makes my life a little bit easier. But I think the fact that we've got it makes it so easy to sell and to dine at a conference in Realm where you're so proud of the food that's being put in front of you because we've got amazing chefs. Like, it makes my job so much easier, and I'm so proud to be sharing this with an amazing team.
That beautiful product that you helped build from the ground up, which is Little National, you didn't stop at building the team. You didn't stop at making the product amazing for those who loved it. You also went on a sustainability journey. Why? Did you have so much time on your hands?
No, I didn't. I guess instead of saying why, it's like, why not? It's no longer something that is a nice to do. It is something that is just essential. Sustainability has always been a passion of mine, and I'm so lucky in my position as GM to be able to drive change and to influence the behaviours of my team. So if I can challenge them to do something at work that may be a little bit out of their comfort zone in relation to sustainability and environmental behaviours, and then they can then take that home and perhaps influence their family, their children, their friends, like that's what I feel like I need to do in this role, because sustainability is at the forefront for so much now, and I think it's only going to continue to become more and more important as we move, in the future.
As somebody who loves what you do, and somebody who advocates for sustainability sometimes in an industry that can't always be environmental conscious, what are some of the challenges you have when you think of return on investments, profitability, gross operating profit? How do you navigate some of those challenges?
Yeah, and that is a great point. It is very challenging. And currently, if you look at some sustainability practices now or initiatives I want to put in place, there actually isn't a return on investment in terms of a financial return. But if you look at something from a social responsibility, it will have a greater return for the environment. So it's weighing up going, well, what can we do that's going to have the greatest impact, not necessarily on the bottom line. And again, it comes back to, I guess, the trust that the owners and my directors have put in me, that if I put a proposal together and say, look, it is going to cost us more, but the return is a greater story or, a lesser impact on the environment, I love that they've got that trust in me that I can put these things here. They don't always get approved, but there are some things that I've really pushed hard for, and try to make every choice that we do with whatever supplier we're working with, that it is in the best interest of the environment.
Looking back to you moving from being a single property GM to being now a GM for multiple properties, what is the hardest leadership lesson you've had to learn?
I think the connectivity with my staff. So with one hotel, you've got one team, one building, one area of focus. As I've taken on more properties, you're diluting a little bit, right? So my time is diluted. It's more spread across, different areas and aspects of the business. And I lose that day-to-day contact with that original team, which I find really sad. And I try to make the time to, go to each hotel as much as I can. But I do know that that my time is just spread thinner, I guess, across more properties. But I miss the connectivity I had with that original kind of core team.
How do you maintain some of those points of connection?
It's because all the hotels are in close proximity, getting around there, seeing them, touching base with them, and not necessarily about work stuff. It can be like, oh, you got a new puppy, like what's it called? And, bonding over different things that aren't work related and trying to kind of get to know the teams. I had a great rooms division manager in Canada who really taught me that lesson so beautifully. Everybody would have lunch at the staff cafeteria and it would always be busy, so you'd never know who would sit at your table. And on this particular day, there were 2 vacant seats next to me, and the general manager and the rooms division manager sat down. And this GM, like you'd refer to as Mr., like surname. So it was quite, there was a huge, I guess, hierarchical structure at that property. So I was completely not starstruck, it's the wrong word, but like in awe that the GM had sat down at my table. And anyway, the rooms division manager, she just started chatting to me like she'd known me forever. She's like, oh, okay. And like, what are you doing in Canada? And, where are you from? And what do you want to do in hotels? And that conversation over lunch, which was totally unexpected, really cemented to me that the ability to get to know your staff makes such a difference, because to think that that was back in 2008 and I'm referring to it today, like that's the impact that conversation had on me.
Yeah, I remember one of those lunches where we had a GM where we had to, that hierarchical structure existed also. It was a great conversation. I just didn't eat any of my food. I was afraid that I don't know, munch too hard or something got stuck in my teeth or something like that. And those moments are important moments. Sometimes young people, ambitious young people, miss them. In some of those moments, reflecting back now, and because you have the experience, the kindness, the authority, what should a young person who has an encounter like that know about the person sitting next to you?
That's interesting, because it wasn't that long ago when a staff member actually told me, but you're intimidating. I was like, oh my gosh, am I? Like, and it never, I don't see myself as intimidating, but it was an interesting piece of feedback from a junior staff member to say to me. And I was like, wow, I really need to look at, how I engage with some of the junior staff, because I'm very operational and I like being on the floors and being, up in the housekeeping team or down in the laundry and helping out, food and beverage. But I never thought that would come across as intimidating. So I think it was a moment of self-reflection to say, hang on, there are these junior staff that have just seen the area GM come and help clear a plate or, clear a conference floor. How do I better engage with them so that they're not like terrified of me? And that's a work in progress. Have I nailed that yet? I don't know. I need to go back and actually ask for more feedback. But I think it's, acknowledging that we all play a part in how we're perceived. And I could think I was, the most approachable GM in Canberra, but it might actually not be the case for my team. So yeah, it was an interesting moment of reflection for me.
And it's a journey, right? We're all on that journey to try to be the best version of ourselves. You touched on missing some of your core team when you have to look across multiple hotels. And people go, oh, that's nice. But people don't really understand sometimes how important that core team is to you. How important was that core team to you? And when you have to look across a broader spectrum of operations, what do you miss the most about that team?
It was just such a pivotal moment in my career, because it was pre-opening, and that had been my goal for years, to be a hotel GM. And so to be given the opportunity to be a pre-opening manager, to have that team around me, we were bonding together because, we were steaming wallpaper off the lobby in Brassey when we were renovating it. Or we were, delivering the Nespresso machines in all of the little national rooms. And it was just, at that moment, I wasn't necessarily, a GM. I was just a colleague, and we were all, just getting stuff done because we needed to get it done. And there was no kind of, I guess, hierarchy there. It was just, let's just bond together and have a great time opening this hotel.
And through that, you built culture, you built systems. How do you build culture now across a broad spectrum of operation?
Culture to me is not just a piece of paper or a writing on the wall. Culture is every day showing up and living those values. And if your team can see you do that, it comes back, I guess, to that mirroring that behavior. I want my team to mirror the values that I'm displaying every day, because if they're happy and they're delivering on these values, that will then transfer to our guest experience. And also, I think if there is someone in the team that's not living up to those values, like holding them to account for it and understanding, well, why, what caused you to do that, and why weren't you aligning with our values? But culture is, it's culture to me, it's behavior. It's not just writing,
Why is culture important?
Because if you don't have culture, what do you have?
Spot on. Spot on.
Yeah, I think, you can have all the strategy in the world, and you can have the best product and, the best food. But if you've got no one delivering it or no one servicing the guest, emulating the culture that you've built, then they're going to go somewhere else, because a product is a product, but it's that feeling and that emotion that's connected to a guest stay that comes from the culture that you've built.
Which also has its challenges in that, because you've got to hold people to account if they're not living up to your culture. But you've also got to be that care and nurturing person when somebody is struggling to acclimatize to the culture because they've come from a different culture. How do you balance this tension?
I think there's a piece there around emotional intelligence. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and on this one particular one I was listening to, it was saying that you could be intellectually the smartest person in the room, but if you have no emotional intelligence, you cannot lead a successful team. And that stuck with me, because I look around and I'm like, wow, that, there are so many people that have got the smarts, but they lack that empathy or the ability to kind of address the problem, not the person.
Mm-hmm.
So I think leading with a huge amount of emotional intelligence and understanding that everyone's got so much going on in their life outside of work, what has caused them to act that particular way. And that's what I want to find out. I'm not attacking the person. Together, we're going to sort out what the problem was and see maybe they're not the right fit for Doma, and that's totally fine. But, if they are and they've just had a moment of like a lapse in judgment, well, then we just need to get them back on the right track and make sure they are living up to those values.
With lots of pressures on people, especially on young people these days. There is cost of living pressures, there is healthcare issues. How do you show up with that empathy to sit down with a young person and find out why this happened and how you can guide them? You might not have time to do that with everybody, and that's understandable. And you have other people doing that. But when you have the time to do that, how do you show up for them?
I think that you have to make time. I have to make time. And it might not be, if someone catches me in the elevator, it might not be that time at that moment, but I will make time. It's like, let's catch up tomorrow for coffee, or, let's nut this out together. That's part of developing and mentoring these people and my team to get the best out of them. And if they can see that the GM's willing to sit down with them and have an open, honest conversation, I think that can speak volumes. That will then build loyalty and trust, and, they'll have that connection to want to do better and to want to, make themselves proud and, make their manager proud, make me proud. But finding the time it's so important to find the time for your team, because if you don't, they'll go somewhere else that has the time for them.
Yeah. This is a difficult one for me to picture, because I've seen you the way you are. I've seen you operating at really high standards. But if you could have a conversation with Kathryn from 20 years ago, in a moment that she was feeling a bit scared, vulnerable, lonely even, starting her hotel career journey, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that you don't need to know everything. You just need to know who to call. And that piece of advice was only given to me like 6 months ago. So as a 40-year-old, I was gifted this advice from someone I have so much respect for and have worked with for, over 10 years. And I was like, why didn't someone tell me that sooner? Like, here I am scrambling to go, I need to know everything about every aspect of this job, which it's not actually true. So I just need to rely on my team or reach out to someone that has that area of expertise that I don't. And that piece of advice was given to me during a particularly like an emergency time. We had something happen at one of our venues, and it just was complete curveball. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I need to do? And she said, no, you don't need to know how to do it. You just need to know who to call. Call someone that knows how to do that. I'm like, so that piece of advice 20 years ago would have been really beneficial.
That bubbly 20-year-old who started their career, or even if you go back to the 14 years and 9 months old girl that did her first job, what would she tell Kathryn now as a piece of advice?
Wow. At 14 years and 9 months, my first job was hosting kids' birthday parties.
Wow.
Dressed as a fairy or a pirate or whatever. I loved it.
So lots of resilience.
Yeah, I learned that early on. But I did my work experience as well in year 10 and year 12, and both of those were in hotel environments. And if I could, that's it. That's amazing, because I think like it would be saying, Kathryn, you are going to make it. Like you are going to have everything that you've put on your goal list. You will achieve that. And I'd like to think she'd say you'll do it with grace and kindness and empathy and, intelligence. And I think that would be wonderful for 14-year-old 9-month Kathryn to say.
What makes you proudest, Kathryn, about the things you have achieved in your career, but the ability to inspire people along the journey? When you look back at that, what are your proudest moments?
Some of them would be when staff I have mentored have walked across the stage and received an award, because I love being a part of their career. So when I look at some staff that have done exactly that, to say that I helped get them there, that's huge for me, because I want to give back. I want future hoteliers to look at someone and go, I want that role because Kathryn made it look so enjoyable and so challenging, but she kind of rose through the challenges. And being a part of someone else's career is that just to me is what I want to do. Yeah.
The honesty in that, I think, is refreshing. I have worked with multiple hotel GMs and people that are friends, people I consider mentors, people I absolutely love. But I have never, ever seen any GM show up at awards nights, whether you're winning or losing or whatever happens, irrespective if you're at the Australian National Tourism Awards or you're at an AICR front office manager presentation, the way you do. And I think people, colleagues, staff are so grateful for you being there and having the time to show up. How do you make time?
Showing up for your team, you have to make time. But I think it comes back to having that network at home where I know that I can go away and travel to awards or, start early in the morning and finish late because I've got such a support network at home. Like it's just knowing that, my kids are safe, that they're well looked after. My husband is so supportive of my career. That makes it easier. But it's not without challenges. And there are days when I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't shown up for work like to my full self. I've dropped the ball at home. And that's when it's like you just need to have a reset and like kind of write today off and start fresh tomorrow. But yeah, those moments do happen where you're trying to be everywhere and looking at my calendar and going, oh my gosh, I've triple booked myself and I'm supposed to be in the city, presenting at Realm and picking up my daughter. And it's like scrambling and going, that's when those glass balls come back into it. It's like, okay, which ball can't I drop? And who else can I rely on to either represent me at work or pick up my child? So there's certainly been some days like that where I've felt like a failure.
Sometimes you got to work really hard for the good things you've had. And the good things you have, you've mentioned your husband a couple of times in our short conversation. Somebody who's supportive of your career is a blessing, but what are the conversations like that you're having to make sure that he understands what you're aiming for, what you need, but also the type of person that makes you proud to be Kathryn, the general manager, the mother, and the wife?
If I look back, so Sean has only ever known me to be in hotels. So aside from my gig hosting kids' parties, and he did know me back then. So
Okay.
quite the evolution. I look back at a moment in Canada where I'd signed on a contract for, a 2-year job. And if I broke that contract, it was almost like you were deemed non-rehirable by this hotel company. And I never wanted that on my record. I was like, I've committed to 2 years. And he was like, well, I'm going back to Australia. I'm kind of done with my contract. And that was fine. We're like, right, we'll go our separate ways. No problem. Anyway, it wasn't long after that he just showed up in the lobby of the hotel and surprised me. And he's like, I've come back. Like, I know that you weren't leaving and I didn't want to stay in Australia. So I've come back. And we did another year. I fulfilled my contract. He did another year at his old job. And I think because I've always been so driven, and I don't want to say I haven't compromised, because there's certainly been that, you have to have that compromising to make the relationship work. But it's, I guess, a bit of flexibility. Like when I finished G20 and I had the opportunity to kind of go wherever, I was even looking at going back overseas, and we had this conversation. He goes, well, we've just kind of committed to your career for 18 months. I'm really loving what I'm doing now. Could we commit to my career? And I was like, yeah, you know what, that seems like a fair compromise. So I came back to Canberra, came back to Doma, and look at where I am now. So it was like not necessarily going, this is a step back. It was just, this is an opportunity to support my husband in his career because he's done that for me. So, yeah.
Your decision-making process seems very clear. How do you think through challenges? Is there something we need to learn about how you think through challenges?
I'll kind of run through my head. If I look at someone that I think could handle it really well, what are they going to do? So that's kind of my first thing. If I'm going to call someone, what are they going to tell me to do first? I'm going to try that first. But I also think the quick decisions are the ones that are super easy to just decide upon and get off your desk, so you're not worrying about them anymore. Like if it's a decision that can be made within like 24 hours, just make it. Don't sit on it for a week, 2 weeks or whatever, because it could be a priority for whoever's asking for, maybe it's approval for something. It could be one of, a huge priority for them. So just give them the courtesy of, yep, no worries, that's done, approved. The ones that then take time, then the team kind of understand, okay, there's a fair bit of consideration that's going into this. There's multiple stakeholders involved. It is going to take more time. So it's just depending on how big the decision is. But those short, sharp ones are almost like easy wins.
As a communicator, the ability to influence your life partner, but also your teams, has that evolved? How so?
Yes, I have an amazing coach right now who I've been working with for about 8 months, who has really challenged me in terms of how to be a better communicator, how to be a better leader, a better employee, a better wife, mother, all of those different hats that I wear. And I've been so grateful for this process I'm going through, because it's almost tapped into a different part of my brain. And she's opened up different areas to really finesse how I go about my day, to make me more productive and to make me a better communicator, and to, ultimately make me ideally a better human overall. So it absolutely has evolved over time. Years ago, I was accused, it sounds so awful, but be like, wow, you over communicate. I was like, well, that's because I don't want anyone to miss out on something or be told that I didn't communicate that. So it's finding a healthy balance as well. Yeah.
I also listen to lots and lots of podcasts, and I was recently listening to a podcast episode where somebody spoke to Grant Cardone and asked him, hey, is it true that you coached this other guy called Alex Hormozi? And he goes, yeah, how'd you know about it? He goes, well, his wife was looking for a 40th birthday present, but because he could have almost anything he wants to with the amount of money he has, she thought, well, how can I give him something that will push him a little more, open up his mind a little more? And she reached out to this guy. And he goes, is it true that you charged him an absurd amount of money, like $100,000 for an hour? And he goes, yeah. people don't know the importance of investing in themselves and in importance of investing in a coach or somebody to guide them to be a better version of themselves. Sometimes not all of us can afford 100,000 an hour. We might aspire to different things. How important is it to A, invest in yourself, but B, find somebody who can help you be a better version of yourself?
It is so important, so important to have someone that can help you to unlock something or to mentor you through something. And you might have multiple mentors for various things. But to me, investing in myself was almost like it was something for me. No one was telling me I had to do it. It was me going, I want to be better, or I want to find a way to, find better structure, or, just be a better leader, better communicator. So for me, when I sit down and I do this course, it's taking a moment for me. It's me time where I'm actively investing in myself. People might be, someone goes to the gym, or someone goes and gets pampered, like that's their way of investing in themselves. But whilst I love a good massage, the ability to just sit down once a week and really take stock of what I've achieved and what I want to achieve is hugely beneficial. And I spend a lot of time, I have a half-hour commute to and from work, so an hour of my day where I can do whatever I want while I'm driving. So I am listening to podcasts about a huge range of things just to keep learning and to keep investing in myself.
They say you can't appreciate or improve the picture until you step out of the frame. So once you step out of the frame and you have an opportunity to take this look at Kathryn through a coaching session, a mentoring session, or just speaking to somebody who really cares about you, what are the uncomfortable moments like?
Uncomfortable. I think it's realizing that, you can't do everything no matter how much you try and you want to be 100% at every aspect of your life. You can't. And that's it's unrealistic, and it's just setting you up for failure. So, those uncomfortable moments come around, like taking time for, mental health check-ins, and, that you are fulfilling in areas of your life. And when you do stumble and drop and feel like, you're a terrible mother, you've got a moment to go actually know, well, what happened? Like, kids are pretty resilient, like having that moment then with the child to, kind of apologize and understand the impact that had on them. And, 9 out of 10 times they've already forgotten about it. So we tend to beat ourselves up a lot more. Well, I do beat myself up a lot more than I need to, because I just want everything to be perfect. And that's not the case.
Perfect in your eyes, but might not be the expectation your child has of you. In a very casual conversation, you very eloquently said, hey kiddo, you didn't come with a instruction manual or a user guide. How can we show up better for each other?
Mm-hmm.
How do you sit and reflect and think so constructively, even in times where sometimes things aren't perfect, sometimes things are chaotic, and sometimes your emotions are also not supporting you? How do you sit and think so eloquently in moments like that?
I feel like I have to take a moment to acknowledge my behavior and the impact that might have had on my 7-year-old, and give her the empowerment to actually teach me how to be a better mum. So, the comment about, that's exactly what I said. You didn't come with an instruction manual, so can you give me some tips on how to be a better mum? And then, I also said to her, and then maybe I can give you some tips on, what we need to work on for your behavior. And it was just this candid conversation. But I just think being authentic and honest and giving her, talking to her, I guess it was kind of an adult conversation, but at a childlike level, and giving her that ability to just give me feedback, and know that there was no ramification from it. Like, there was no one was in trouble. It was just, I want to be better. Help me to be better. Yeah.
Also gives her the opportunity to understand mommy better.
Mm-hmm.
that mom wants the best for her. Sometimes as parents, we want the best for our children. We just don't know how to communicate that to them. Did that take you 7 years of your child growing up to understand? Where does that realization come?
That's interesting because growing up, my dad was in the army, so quite often was away for extended periods of time. And my mum raised 4 kids and kind of sacrificed her career to raise us and, waited till much later in life to kind of re-enter the workforce. So growing up as a 7-year-old, my mum was home. She was doing the school drop-offs, during school pickups. So I didn't see that female figure going to work every day. It wasn't until much later. So I don't know. I just wanted to have that moment with my daughter. Not that I'd seen it as an example before, because it's almost like my mum was always there, so I knew that I could go to her. But if I'm kind of doing a school drop-off and Felicity is a bit upset, I want to make sure she knows, like, well, I'm going to work because of this, and setting a different example than what I had growing up. And having I treasure those moments with her because, I think that she just needs to know that when I'm there, I'm present. But when I'm not there, it's because I've got this career, and I hope that she looks up to me and is like, my mum's a boss lady.
To run a busy life like you've got, you need to have some systems in place. Let's start delving into some of those systems. Some of them are by design, and some of them fall into place. What do your systems look like to make sure that you are the best version of you when you show up at a hotel?
It's funny, and I'm kind of giggling to myself because my husband will say, "You're so on the ball at work, but you come home," and it's like, just because I'm so focused at work, I get home and it's just like, okay.
But home's a happy place.
So it's really funny. I think the systems in place are like things like routine. We know what we're doing on any given day, and when something falls over, we just need to be flexible and adjust. And one thing that Sean and I do together is if ever a child is sick, it's like, okay, well, let's look. Okay, you've got priority meetings in the morning, mine are in the afternoon. Right, you stay home, and then we'll flip. Or I can work from home today because I can dial in for everything. You go to work. So it's really having that balance and that support, and also that flexibility. But yeah, routines are great until something goes wrong, and then you've got to have that ability to pick it all up and change the plan. Yeah.
How important is it for a mother who is also a professional to understand that what they might be hearing and what they're listening or seeing on media or social media, where people are doing their 3 cold plunges and their 15 affirmations in the mirror, and suddenly Mel Robbins has told them to high-five themselves in the mirror, but your children are screaming in the room. What are the practical realities a professional and also a mum needs to know?
Whatever works for you. Years ago, when I was on mat leave, so I had the toddler in Felicity and then my newborn, and I was listening to a podcast that these 2 mums had created, and they had a series of people they were interviewing, and I was listening to this woman because she sounded very similar to me. She was career driven. She was in a high performance corporate job, and she had a family. And I was like, okay, this sounds like a great interview for me to listen to. And then when they asked her, how do you do it all? And she's like, oh, I've got a nanny, I've got a chef, I've got da-da-da-da. I'm like, I turned it off because I was like, I can no longer connect with you, because it wasn't relatable to me. And whilst I have the support of grandparents and, a supportive husband, the idea of having all that extra help just was foreign. So I couldn't really relate to that person. But mum guilt is super real. I think even parents in general, we look at the way fathers parent now compared to generations ago, and they're so involved. At swimming lessons yesterday, the dads were in the pool with the babies. It was more like a dads and bubs class. I think that's wonderful. But the guilt of having to divide your time between what your child needs and wants versus a career, and a team that you've got waiting on you to arrive or whatever the case may be, it can be really challenging at times.
How do you work through some of those challenges?
I think having the awareness when I'm starting to burn out, because it's happened before and I've seen a psychologist for it, because I think physical ailments are so easy to spot. You know, someone's got a broken leg or you can hear someone sniffling and coughing and, you know, you're like, okay, go home, you're sick. But to tap into someone's mental capacity, it's so challenging. So I think for me, I need to be aware of when I'm getting to that point of like overwork, exhaustion, and what do I need to do to reset. And that might mean I just need no one to touch me, bother me, be anywhere near me, and I just need to go on a walk, or I need to, get on my reformer or go for a run. Or usually for me, it's moving my body in some way, and that gives me the reset that I need. But yeah, mental health is something that's so difficult to spot in someone, and if they're pretty good at masking it, you might not even know.
You won't know until you know.
Yes.
And the challenge when you know is that you've got to be super smart to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have the supportive people around you to guide you, not always to pull you out of the mud, maybe sometimes to sit beside you in the mud. But you need to have those people. For somebody who has some experience with burnout, what are some of your words of wisdom for somebody who is brilliant at masking things?
You need to find someone you can trust to talk to, whether that's a colleague or seek professional help. Like again, it comes back to not needing to know everything, but go to an expert that does know your brain and can help you. And I think that, you know, this was years ago when I was going through this, and it's like there was somewhat of a stigma around it. And I'd like to think that has evolved. Maybe it hasn't for some people, but yeah, I do think that with just, you know, in a work environment, you can easily spot someone that's having a physical issue. But yeah, we just need to be mindful and kind of check in on our team and, you know, are you okay? What do you need from me? What does support look like if I tell you I'm here to support you? What does that look like for you? And I think that's a really important conversation for managers and leaders to have with their staff.
It's something I generally have conversations around with people I care about. Is the stigma that, you know, we still can't get the help we need to get because you don't have a physical ailment and you're not crazy. I'm like, what? We're not in the 60s. I'm not going to seek some help because I'm crazy. I'm going to seek some help because I'm not showing up the way I want to show up. And it doesn't matter if you can't see that in me. I know.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when you need some help?
I'll get irritable. I might be fine at work, but I'll get home and that's when it's just like there'll be a meltdown or something will trigger me and it's something so silly. And I'm like, okay, like I'm at that point. So what I need to work on is catching it before it gets to that point and going, okay, at work, if it's getting, okay, well, why can't I delegate that? Or, you know, there's plenty of people around me here that can help take some of the pressure off my plate and just knowing when I need to do that. But everybody's going to be different. And the more you work on that and invest in yourself, the more you're going to be able to identify those triggers before it becomes to a full like volcano eruption.
Why is it super hard for mostly mums and dads who've got careers and children to invest in something like their mental health or seeing a professional? And I understand sometimes you feel like, I don't have the time to do it. Sometimes you might not have the additional money you need to do it. Sometimes you might not be comfortable even telling your partner that you need to get some help. But like you rightly say, where are we at our most comfortable at home? And that's what tends to suffer the first. Because you're not going to blow up an office for no reason. There is a ramification for that.
Yeah.
Why is it important for someone to spot it early and do something about it?
Well, I guess the first point about why is it perhaps more challenging for families, because you're always putting someone else first, right? So I want to make sure that my kids are looked after before me, but it's coming back to that analogy of putting the mask on yourself first, you know, because if you're not breathing the oxygen, how can you help anyone else? And yeah, when it gets to that, it's like, hang on, is my oxygen mask on, or is my cup full before I can help someone else? But it's taken me years to learn that. Like, that's not something that I knew, as a 15, 18, 21-year-old. I'm now 40, and it's like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. So yeah, I think it's that experience. It's going through it and understanding that, hey, I got to a point where I probably didn't want to be. But knowing now that, yeah, like, I need to look after myself before I can be the best person, best version of my mum, me being a mum, a worker, a wife, all of that.
Let's talk about your systems at office.
Mm-hmm.
What are your systems at office like for you to show up, have oversight of what's happening across multiple properties, but oversight of maybe people that need your support the most also, because there are teams delivering things. We still don't have humanoids delivering bags and doing laundry and all of that.
Not yet.
Might happen soon, but we're not there yet. What are your systems like to set you up when you start the day?
I like to come through and, just greet the team and, good morning, how's it been? Usually the hotel's 24/7, so I'm not here all the time, and I'm coming in, 8:30 and talking to the team. How are you? How's the morning been? Reading duty logs so I can understand what's happened, overnight. But getting involved with the team and understanding, okay, we've got laundry issues down at our commercial laundry. Okay, I'm going to jump down there and see how they're going and help if I need to. I often joke with the team down there because I genuinely love just feeding towels into the machine and catching the other end and stacking. It's just such a process for me, and I love that's what you're doing, right? But also just being present. So being around, being available, and knowing where to set the boundaries. So managing my calendar and blocking in time for admin, emails, all that sort of stuff that comes through. But it's any GM will tell you every day is different. So you could have, a day that's structured down to the minute, but something will happen. A guest will want to see you, or you've got a VIP that was due at 2 and is now 11 and they've just walked into the lobby. Like, things will happen. And it's just, again, adapting and prioritizing and looking to your team where you can delegate if needed. But I love being a part of the team. And I think that helps to build respect with the teams as well, because there's nothing I wouldn't do. If housekeeping need help, I will help them, strip beds and make beds and vacuum. And yeah, that's across any department.
You're very hands-on in your approach. How do you also remain conscious of the other priorities that happen? Because when you're down helping the team at laundry, there are lots of other things that can go on at the same time.
Yes.
How do you manage that? That's
been one of the biggest challenges for me, because I came up in my hotel career, operationally through the rooms division. So, reservations, reception, I even did maintenance for a little while, housekeeping, all of that. So I'm super familiar with it. And I love getting back into those ground roots of my hotel career. But you're spot on, because when I'm operationally helping, the strategic side of my role has to wait. And that's not ideal, because as a GM, I don't want to be spending my days doing other jobs that are, you've got housekeepers and receptionists and duty managers that fulfill those roles. So on those days where the priority is turn the rooms over so the guests can check in, I will sacrifice that strategic part and I'll do that after hours. So it just becomes a longer day for me, whether I log on at home or I start early the next day or something waits. But yeah, it's just that priority juggle. But you're spot on, because whilst I'm busy in one area, another area is waiting for me. Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge for most hotel GMs. I don't know of many hotel GMs that just became hotel GMs. Most of them committed their lives to this profession, and they grew up through the ranks, and then their pathway of growth is still their passion area, and you'll see them dive in hands and legs to serve their guests, to look after their teams. But sometimes you've got to elevate yourself to that strategic level. And not saying that the hotel GMs are not doing it, they're doing exactly what you said. You'll do that, you'll enjoy it, you'll be tired, but you'll have to somehow look at that management strategic level of it, which is an additional load on you.
Yeah.
people sometimes in hospitality or in hotels don't really understand the newer staff of, the importance of going through your morning meetings, the importance of going through guest profiles.
Mm-hmm.
How important has that been for you?
I think it comes back to, holding staff to account and having those processes in place that if someone doesn't achieve that or complete that arrival check correctly, the impact on the guests can be XYZ, which then if it's significant enough, it could land up on my desk anyway because the guest hasn't had a pleasant experience. So if you look at back to bare bones, everybody has a role to play, and that's across every department. But if there's a kind of a chink in the armor somewhere, this snowball effect can be, quite detrimental if it's not picked up, where it needs to be. So we have a series of processes in place and policies that help drive, ultimately the best guest experience we can deliver.
Yeah. The gold standard of sometimes commitment that I have heard is, there was a janitor that worked at NASA and some consultant was using the washroom, came out and asked him, "Hey, Rob, what do you do here?" And he was cleaning the floor and he said, "Sir, I help put men on the moon." And that just shows that level of commitment. And I call it the gold standard because I also have spent years in the industry and I understand that that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. How do you build teams that not only do what you guide them to do, but believe in that vision?
It comes back to being a part of it or knowing and sharing those personal experiences of when I was in housekeeping and understanding that it's such a physical job, but I truly respect what you do because we can't release a room, we can't put a guest in there if you haven't cleaned it and you haven't gone, it is to the standard that you will expect, Kathryn, and you can put a VIP in there. So for the team to know that I've done so many department roles myself in my own career, for them to hopefully look at me and go, wow, Kathryn was a housekeeper 22 years ago. If I look at my career, could I be a GM in 22 years? I think that's quite remarkable. And I hope that that's what I'm inspiring people to do. So I think building those teams is all about connecting with your staff and knowing that when they're struggling, you're there to help them, whether that be through arranging additional staff, speeding up a recruitment process or genuinely diving in with them, whatever that looks like. That just helps to build that team culture.
In the mix is also the challenges that you have as a general manager. Some of which may be a pandemic-related challenge. Some of it for us in Canberra might be seasonal challenges or around Parliament sitting or around, nothing happening in winter. We want more things to happen. There's occupancy challenges. How do you structure your outlook as a leader when you are looking at the range of challenges and you have a portfolio of varied hotels that can offer different guest experiences?
Mm-hmm. Revenue fixes everything. So when the revenue's there, it's great, right? When revenue's not there, it's all about balancing those expenses. So flexing rosters, training the teams, really getting them to dive into their numbers and understand that where are you pulling back so that we can still deliver and not sacrifice guest experience, but where are you pulling back? Where are you looking at distributing your staff? And again, with the 4 hotels here, can we cross-train, which we do? A number of the staff work across multiple venues and multiple outlets purely for that reason. So you don't need to have you don't have to have a full suite of staff trained in one hotel. You cross-train them so that you've got greater flexibility. It's working with our revenue team to make sure that distribution is there. It's working with marketing to make sure all, people know what we've got available and what's on offer. It's that whole sense of just a big machine, all cogs turning at the same time, and knowing that, yes, in Canberra, there are ebbs and flows, but for the most part, they're pretty predictable because we're so government and corporate driven. And then you get, those peak times of things like Floriade that will bring people to Canberra. Canberra market it's not so much a leisure market. It's very much driven by Parliament.
And how does your team then structure their days and how do you support them with some structure?
Well, knowing that, like, when Parliament's sitting, that's our peak time, or when we've got big residential conferences in-house. I love being in the lobby in the mornings to just see what's happening and, see our guests that are moving through and, welcome someone back or bid a regular guest goodbye. Yeah, it's knowing that those, there's peak check-in and check-out times. It's just being present and making sure they know that that's when you're going to have people arriving. If they're unsure, a great option is if we've got groups arriving from interstate, pulling up the flight times for Canberra Airport, and then we can predict roughly what time people are arriving. But yeah, kind of going through what the day looks like, whether it is a heavy occupancy week or if it's a quieter week, and what options they can do to drive more business or do some of those other mundane tasks that aren't necessarily done when it's very busy.
You also spoke about the structure or the type of clients that are predominantly in your focus. You speak about corporate clients. A lot of them are looking at rate, but there are also corporates that are looking at sustainability, the values of the hotels. How have you seen that changing?
Yeah, definitely through our RFPs. So corporates are asking what our sustainable practices are, what that looks like. Do we have an ESG plan? And I'm really, really driving that hard, not only as a GM, but we have a sustainability committee and working with that committee to get some things in place that we don't already have. I see that in the future purely driving decision-making as much as rate does, because if companies are wanting to minimize their carbon footprint and with mandate reporting come in, like they're going to need to look and stay at hotels that align with their own company's sustainable goals. And if a hotel isn't part of that, well, then they're going to miss out potentially on corporate contracts. But interestingly, and our precinct is unique in this, is we've got Brassey, which is our heritage property. So what sustainable practices look like there versus something like Little National are very different because you have to work within the heritage guidelines. So yeah, it'll be an interesting space to watch, but I'm really invested and really keen to see how that space grows.
Watching how you work in the sustainability space, I've seen you work on biodegradable products initiatives, on soap initiatives, working with our public schools on sustainability initiatives. What's your favorite?
Professionally, I guess my favourite achievement was winning 2 national AHA awards for sustainable practices, and that was through Little National Canberra. That was just such an amazing, just a great feeling and a really proud moment to go, wow, like this is a national award where hotels all over Australia are entering, and Little National Canberra took out the win. That was a really proud moment for me, and it's happened twice in the 10 years that I've been managing Little National. Personally, the fact that I got my graduate certificate in sustainable leadership at 40 was quite just a really proud moment for me personally, because I took that opportunity to study, to complement my passion and to go, well, I already really enjoy this space just because I want to learn more about it. I'd love to support it with a formal qualification. And so, yeah, those moments and the ability to impact like the public schools that we worked with, that's that next generation coming through. So they're just like little sponges, and their awareness of sustainable practices and what can be done is sometimes greater than people that are like, their grandparents and parents. So I find that fascinating that these kids are just so ingrained and so interested in doing whatever they can to protect the planet, and to have the ability to work with them was pretty cool.
The RFP process for corporates is really boring sometimes, in my opinion. But you care about sustainability much more than just to put some words in place for an RFP. How important was those first footsteps that you took when Little National was getting established, or as you pushed through the journey? How important was those foundational steps?
Well, firstly, I have to thank our sales team because they do the RFPs. I don't. They do tend to send the environmental questions to me though, so that's fine. Opening Little National and Brassey, because they opened so like within kind of 4 weeks of each other when Brassey reopened after Doma had bought it. I knew I wanted to open them as paperless properties. So wherever possible in that sense. There's still some paper in there because, it's challenging to get rid of every piece of paper. But for the most part, I'd seen this work successfully at the hotel I was working at in Canada, where guests are arriving and there's no registration card. It's eye-to-eye, face contact, and the communication starts straight away, as opposed to, please fill this in, and then you've got your guest that's looking down at a piece of paper for, a minute while you're trying to take payment. There's just the lack of connectivity there was something that I was like, well, let's just do away with the registration cards. Let's look to technology to capture terms and conditions and make sure we've got, all the ID cited, all that sort of stuff. So that was one that I was, really proud to kind of just get from the very beginning. And to my point before about having a really green team, having non-hoteliers come in, they knew no different. So they actually didn't know that this was a big step for a hotel to open up and not have a registration card. And then we slowly worked it through Burberry and Realm, but that was more challenging because they'd only ever done it that way. So it was like another behavior. We had to break a habit and we had to put this in place. And it was a bit, I guess like any change, there's change management there. But it was really interesting just seeing how two hotels were able to take it on straight away because there was no other alternative. But for the other two hotels, it was a little more challenging because they had to, learn a new way of checking someone in.
It's a change for the staff and a change for the guest also. Your returning guests who are used to the card, as much as they might have believed in sustainability and want something better, they're like, where's my card? Where do I sign?
Yeah, where do I sign?
How has the guest communication been about your sustainability initiatives?
It's referenced in some of our surveys and things like that we're getting where guests are able to give us feedback. At Little National, we run a low emissions stay, so guests have the opportunity when booking to actually choose not to have their room service and to forego certain things in the rooms that are, single use. So like a shower cap, for example, or they don't have to have slippers if they're not going to use them. So in order to kind of entice guests to do that, we give them a $10 discount off their rate. So we're saying, look, there's a benefit to us, but there's also a benefit to you, and we want to share that and give you $10 discount. So that's been really well received. And, we're working with a student who's doing a PhD who's actually gathering that data and reporting back on what that looks like and why can it be done on a wider scale. So to be part of that process has been really cool.
It's also building partnership and connection with your guests because they are also now. We used to be fascinated with the pillow menu.
Yes,
now you can pick and choose how much you're actually contributing to protecting the environment.
Yes.
Because not all of us want a shower cap.
Mm-hmm.
But if a hotel doesn't give us a shower cap, we'll be pretty angry.
Well, that's a really interesting point. And I was speaking on a panel last year on sustainability. And one of the questions was, well, why are you even giving slippers? And I was like, great question. That might not be a priority for you, but in a 5-star luxury environment, slippers are an expectation. And so if our guests do want to use the slippers, let's make them the most sustainable choice we can find. So it was interesting to see, okay, well, that meant nothing to that particular guest, but it could be the difference between a guest going, oh my gosh, like, where are my slippers? So looking at choices that have sustainability at the forefront to still be able to deliver a great guest experience.
Speaking about the guest able to participate in what they get in the room and be a partner in that process, how important is it to tell a guest that this is their option and how they can actually control and contribute to that option? Because a lot of the time, some of us who traveled a bit go, oh, so you're going to give me $10, but I have to spend it at your property. Yes, you have 5 restaurants, but I have to spend it in only the 2 buffet restaurants. Mm-hmm. A lot of us have some lived experience that might not always be optimal. How important is it to communicate the value addition to the guest?
Well, that's through our website. So you were actually getting $10 back in your pocket. We're not telling you to spend it in the bar, in mini bar or whatever. We're actually saying to you, help us and we're going to give you this back. So at the end of the booking process, you can choose to add on items or you can choose to reduce your room rate. And the guest knows that from the moment they book. what they're going to miss out on. And it could be the shower cap, slippers, the robes, no daily servicing, and those little things in the room that some people come to expect. But for some travelers, it's of no relevance to them. So they're fine to take it. But it's important to set that expectation so that they have to click that they've chosen to reduce their room rate. They'll understand what they're missing out on. And we even communicate when they get to the hotel. If at any point you want those items back, that's not a worry. You've changed your mind. We're totally flexible, but the $10 is going to be put back on your room account.
How has that partnership with your guest been? Like, what are some of the comments you've heard from people who've stayed with you?
About sustainability?
Yes.
Yeah, that that's coming through on our guest surveys, that we're a sustainable property. Even the size of the room. So you're not having to heat a massive suite that you may never even sit on the sofa. They're compact. They're 17 meters squared. They're efficient to heat and cool. So it starts from that moment you walk in, and we've got things like sensor lighting through the corridors. So guests will see that as well as they start to walk down. Oh, okay, yep, lights are coming on, so we're not burning energy unnecessarily. So there's kind of touch points around the hotel where guests will get that messaging automatically because things are happening as they're moving around the hotel. But then, there's information through the website, through our sustainability tab, through the award recognition that we've received, doing posts on social media and things like that to make sure guests know that, we're doing our part wherever possible.
You're championing a group of hotels. You're championing a lot of your passion through sustainability and leadership and all of those things. How important is it to show up as yourself? And I'll explain a little bit what I mean by that. Is that, yes, we have more and more female GMs in the industry. It's not yet the norm. And you can run up against some challenges still. How important is it to be aware of some of those challenges, but how important is it to show up with confidence and actually get what you need to get?
Imposter syndrome still comes into play all the time. Like, interestingly, even, today when, it's like, am I interesting enough? Are people going to want to listen? Imposter syndrome is very real for me. And I think that, that does stem from going in and being a, young female GM and attending general manager meetings where everybody else in the room was male. And it's happened. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to hold my own in amongst this team. And what can I bring that still holds value and that shows these men that I deserve a seat at this table? But ultimately, I can't be anybody else other than me. There's no point to me trying to, be one personality at work and one personality at home. What you get from me is just who I am. And I think that's probably the key to my success because I'm just authentic and the staff know what they're going to get from me every day of the week. So it's definitely, it's challenging, and seeing the evolution of the extra GMs come through that have been female in Canberra is amazing and welcomed. But I also understand kind of the reasoning why. If women like me choose to pause their career to have a family, well, then naturally there's going to be less females in the room. But it's nice to see there is more females now present, but I think there's a valid reason why, perhaps women take a pause.
Is the acceptance in terms of behavior when you show up to a GM meeting where there is only other males who've been GMs across multiple hotels, is that acceptance, that comfort level getting better?
Absolutely. But I think it's from me. Mm-hmm. They may never have had an issue. It was all in my head. So now, having been in Canberra as a GM for 10 years, it's just me being more comfortable in that role and, working with some GMs that have been in the role the same time that I have. So they're familiar faces. But potentially it was all in my head. So I don't know what they thought of me initially. But it's, that comfort level is definitely changing because of what I've learned about myself and my experiences and how to reflect in those situations better.
We touched a little bit on emotional intelligence. A couple of strong female leaders that I've spoken to have given me that same answer to go, I don't know about what people were thinking about me in the room, but I was the one who was scared. I was the one whose confidence was shaken. Although I knew what I could do, my abilities weren't shaken, my confidence in that room was a bit shaken. When did you realize that it was not about them, it was about you?
Probably when I learned more about imposter syndrome. When I actually started reading up on it, I'm like, oh, okay, this actually has a name, and this is exactly how I'm feeling. And it's more me than the other people in the room.
We touched upon your behaviors and modeling your behaviors. How important is it for you to be a female leader, but that models strong behaviors for your team to be able to learn something from you? And I understand you're in a 24/7 environment. I understand some of the wide spectrum of challenges you have to deal with, not every week, but every day. So you can't be magnificent every second, although with you, I'm not really sure. I think you can. How important is it for you to model strong behaviors?
It's very important. And I think what I want to model is that almost that humility and also the accountability piece, that if I do drop the ball, that I'm the first one to go, hey guys, I messed that up and I'm really sorry for the impact that had on you. Because then also that gives them the confidence to also do the same thing and be like, Kathryn, I forgot to do this and this is the impact. This is how I'm not going to do it again because I've learned from this experience. So yeah, the ability to kind of fall on your sword and put your hand up and go, I made a mistake, that I think speaks volumes. And I hope that is what I'm sharing with the team, to know that it's okay to make a mistake. That's how we all learn. And if you do, I'm that net at the bottom that catches you and pulls you back up, because I might have made the same mistake in my career early days, or, I made a mistake yesterday that I needed your compassion for. Here's my compassion back to you.
Sometimes home is important for us. After a busy day, after a hectic day, after a stressful day, how do you open the door to two children that are going to come running to you going, mommy, mommy, mommy? And a husband also who wants to communicate and also feel that his wife's home, to set the expectation that mom's not had the easiest of day. Mom maybe needs 25 seconds to just de-stress and show up. How do you set that expectation at home?
If it's been a really bad day, I actually drive home in silence. Like, I will drive home my 30-minute commute. I'm down in Tuggeranong Valley, so I drive over the Monaro and I look at the Brindabellas and I'm like, this is a pretty beautiful part of Canberra. I'm part of Australia. That kind of gives me a moment to just feel a bit more grounded. And then I do get home and it's like, okay, I've had 30 minutes to kind of decompress, to turn from GM Kathryn to mum Kathryn and wife Kathryn. Because, when I open those doors, the kids are just, whoa, mum's home, which is amazing, right? And they kind of give you that energy to all the, the challenges you had at work that day. They refuel you because they want to tell you about their day. And, I think we set little family traditions. So every night at dinner, when we're having dinner together, we ask each other, what was the best part of your day? And it can be anything, right? The kids come up with some crazy, crazy ideas. And sometimes the best part of my day is leaving work to come home to you guys. Other days it's like, oh, we had a great win at work and this is what I did. And and then the other tradition we have, my husband and I, on Friday, we have Champagne Friday. So it's not always a bottle of champagne that we open. Some days it's a $10 bottle. But we toast to the week. And it's like, it doesn't matter what happened in the week, there'd be small wins that we're celebrating with Champagne Friday. And that's our moment to just kind of sit down and go, right, what are we toasting to this week? Yeah.
That's a really beautiful tradition. I'm going to go back and ask you a question about Sean, who turned up in the hotel lobby that you were working in.
Yes.
You felt love then.
Yes.
How has your interpretation of love evolved as a 40-year-old?
I think as a it's changed, I guess. It's changed over time because, I love my hotels, and for years they were effectively like my babies. Like, I would give so much time and energy to them, and it didn't matter that I would be working long hours because I chose that, and there was no one that I needed to look after at home, right? So, then I get in a great relationship, and then there's, Sean that needs attention from a wife and, from a partner. And yeah, so there's that love that goes there that's mutually respected and someone that supports me wholeheartedly in what I do. And then you've got love for children that just seems like it's endless. There are certainly days when they're driving me crazy, but for the most part, they're just amazing little children that are wanting to look up and I want them to look up to me and go, hey, mum had an amazing career and, this is what she was able to do. And I think that's pretty cool.
For somebody who's worked overseas and traveled and explored, what are those new experiences like, or the shared new experiences like when you travel and explore with your children?
Well, that's great because we've got an upcoming trip at the end of the year, so I'll come back to you on that one. But the trips we've done so far, it's the way they engage with culture. We've been to Fiji twice now, and the ability for them to just immerse themselves into the cultural experiences over there is remarkable. And then they come back and they're still talking about these things that they did, and whether it's making shell necklaces or participating in the sunset ceremonies, that's something special that I'm so grateful I'm able to give to my children. Not everybody has the ability to travel internationally. So I'm very grateful, but that also swings when the kids are upset that I'm dropping them at school. It's like, well, mummy's going to work because then we can go to XYZ and understand that, we're working really hard to give them these amazing experiences.
How important is it for them to understand some of the values of life, hard work, earning money, the ability to spend and care and give? How important is it in your opinion?
So important, but how do you teach it? Like, how do you, you want to give everything to your child, but you don't want them to be spoiled, but you don't want them to feel they've missed out. And, you want to teach them good money habits. It's very challenging, that side of things. I think teaching compassion is actually probably a little easier because, I talk to my children about being kind, and kindness is, it is intercultural. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're kind, you can say a lot with a smile. And whereas the stuff about money is probably a bit more challenging, and probably more Sean's domain than mine.
How do you see them learning new things from both mom and dad, and not things that you're explicitly trying to teach them? Things when they have their few quiet moments and they're looking at mom and dad, what are those things that you're seeing them picking up?
I hope they see resilience and tenacity and a good work ethic. But also those moments, those family traditions where we celebrate our successes and we're there for each other when we're having bad days, and that it's okay to, show your emotions and have an honest conversation and get them involved in those conversations. How did that make you feel? Or, sorry, mum yelled before because you dropped your chocolate milk. I'm really sorry. What can we do differently next time? So it's all a massive learning curve, right? For them as little kids, but for us as parents. And I just want to, share with them as much as I can, but be a really strong role model for them, that they can have a family, they can have a great relationship, and they can be successful in a career that they've chosen to follow.
Let's drive back now 30 minutes to one of your hotels. And for a staff member that looks up to you and admires you as the general manager of the hotel, what do they need to know about the values you hold, but what your expectations are also?
Knowing that I was once them. So chances are I was once doing their job. So know that, hard work and commitment and drive will get you to where you want to be. But it's not just going to come to you on a silver platter. You need to work for it. You need to take advantage of any opportunity given to you, seek out those opportunities. I remember in Canada, I wanted to learn as much as I could about this hotel as quickly as I could. So I would work housekeeping in the morning just to get familiar with the layout of the rooms. And then I'd go and do a PM reception shift because I could use the knowledge from being up on the floors to then give the best guest experience, because I knew which rooms had the best view and the best layout. And if someone said, I want a room with, 2 windows and a desk in the corner and a really large wardrobe, I could be like, that's this room number. So it's almost like you've got to put the work in to get the results. And yeah, I like to think that I'm delivering really strong values, but it's certainly not easy. It's hard work, but you put it in and you'll reap the benefits.
Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of the time when I reflect back at learning, someone recently asked me what my most important learning was, and I'm going, it actually was opening the front door at the Hyatt Canberra from 5:30 to 7:30 for about 3 years. Worked as the marketing communication manager, but this brilliant general manager once told me, if you want to learn about hotels, just open the front door. You'll speak to so many people. You'll learn so much about the property, about all of that. But sometimes we try to learn doing our job and only our job. How important is it for us to take a moment, maybe breathe and just look around and learn from it?
Yes, spending time in your hotel, in the public spaces, being up on the floors in the rooms is actually giving you a taste of what the guest is experiencing. So we might be saying we're doing this, but actually from a guest point of view, we're doing this. And, you know, where do we want to align and what do we actually want to deliver from a guest experience? So it's hugely important. Spend time in the outlets, spend time in the lobby, get to know your guests, and you'll start to see your familiar faces that, you know, there's many guests that will just catch me like, let's go have a catch up. You know, how was your stay? Oh, well, last time they did this time they did, oh, okay, well, let's streamline that. Like that raw, honest feedback from the people that are actually staying in our hotels is invaluable. Whether it's constructive or glowing, any feedback is good feedback because you're learning from it. You're constantly making your product better, or you're maintaining a standard that guests have come to know and love.
Kathryn, for your parents who were there for you, who are currently there for you also, what do you think they're most proud of?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Gosh, I like to think that they're proud that I've made a really successful career in hotels because that's what I've wanted to do. Like I've had that drive and that commitment. And I think that stems from when Dad was in the army, whenever we'd be moved around either internationally or interstate, the beginning and end of every posting was at a hotel. So from an infant, like I've had really positive experiences with hotels because it was like, oh, end of one chapter, start of a new adventure. And I think that's really stemmed like why I've kind of gone into hotels. But yeah, I'd like to think that they're proud of me for being a good human, for following my passion and pursuing sustainability where I have, helping educate them on better sustainable practices. Yeah, I'm sure they are proud of me. They're overseas right now, so they're actually not here for me right now, which I'm missing them dearly.
Look at us as kids, right? Our expectations only increase. For a young person who's working really hard in a hotel, but who's now done 2 years, 2.5 years in the same role, and that's feeling a little stuck. What's a couple of words of advice you can offer them?
Have a conversation with your manager. They might not know what you want to do. So set time aside, talk to them honestly and be like, I want to do this. What do I need to do? What am I missing? What skills do I need to develop to take that next step? But an interesting example from my own career was in Canada. I was fulfilling a position on our executive floor for the summer. So that was very seasonal, that hotel. And at the end of the summer, I was supposed to go back to front desk down on the main lobby floor. And I fell in love with the executive floor because it was just that next level hotel within a hotel. The expectation of the staff to know everything they could about guests was so high, and I thrived in that environment. And whilst they didn't have any of the concierge roles after the summer, they had a role in the food and beverage department, and it was called pantry attendant. So I'm going from being a concierge to a pantry attendant, so not super glamorous. But I said to my front office manager, who was expecting me back down on the main lobby, and I said, look, I've fallen in love with the executive floor, and they have a position in their food and beverage department. And she goes, oh, well, that's a step backwards for you, isn't it? And I said, well, I actually don't see it as a step backwards. I see it as an opportunity to stay on the executive floor and know that when a concierge position comes up, I'm right there to take it. And she wasn't particularly happy that I'd chosen that route, but I stuck with my guns and I was like, no, I'm staying on this floor, doing whatever I need to do, whether that be in housekeeping, a pantry attendant, whatever I needed to do to stay on the executive floor. And yeah, within weeks of being a pantry attendant, a position came up and there I was. So not every opportunity is seen as a step backwards. Like, think about your long-term plan. And yeah, a title's just a title, pantry attendant. Like, you know, it was just an opportunity as opposed to a step in the wrong direction.
For a young mother that's about to come back to work, be it part-time or full-time, that's sitting and dreading mom guilt stuff, baby brain stuff,
Yeah.
but also work expectations because they hold themselves to high standards. What's that one piece of advice you'd give them?
You can do it and you will do it, but it will be tough. And you will be sitting in the daycare center or in the car crying because you've left your infant in someone else's care. But think of that as an opportunity for them to develop their social skills and for them to get every bug under the sun. So their immunity is really great in primary school. It's challenging and that mum guilt won't go away. But I think if you've got a flexible work environment. So if you've got, have that conversation with your boss about, well, what are the expectations now that I'm coming back? What do you need me to deliver upon? Because I might be called to pick up the child from daycare, or whatever the case may be. But it's tough, but you will get through it. And it will bring to your leadership style a whole nother element because you'll have that empathy naturally now because of that, it's that maternal instinct to want to kind of pick people up and take them under your wing. So it actually helps to develop your own leadership style. But yeah, there'll be moments when you're in tears and your kid won't even miss you, but you'll be the one, wiping your tissues and fixing your mascara in the car before you walk into the office.
Kathryn, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your ideas and insights so elegantly, but thank you for also making time for me every time we catch up. Thank you for inspiring a whole heap of people around me to be the best, not only professionals, but people they are in their lives. Thank you for just being such a wonderful human.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You've been an amazing host and you've made me feel very comfortable. So thank you, Avon.
Thank you. A huge thank you to the wonderful team at Doma Hotels for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. If you are looking for 5-star accommodation, wonderful event spaces, and carefully curated dining destinations, the Doma Hotels offers all of that for you.